Number 5. Time Hipster? This one's an absolute classic in the time travelers caught on footage community, of which there are dozens of members. This strange photograph that's made the rounds of a man who looks like he's stepped out of time. The photo was taken in 1941 at the reopening of the South Fork Bridge in Canada, but when the photograph was included in a digital gallery in 2010, the internet instantly took to the guy in the crowd who looks like he just walked out of a crypto startup or had just come back from axe throwing and hitting the barcade. This guy is dressed in surprisingly hip clothes, looks like he's wearing contemporary shades, and kinda looks like he's holding a DSLR camera. You'd think a time traveler would be bringing back something a little bit more extravagant, but you know, maybe it was all they could afford. He could have spent all that money on those sweet shades and that cool shirt. Did he come back in time just to get some snaps of a bridge reopening? It seems like you could probably shoot your shot a lot higher if you were messing with the space-time continuum and all that. Nonetheless, the image of the well-dressed hipster in the crowd has sparked a lot of debate, since he definitely doesn't dress like he's from the 30s. Those shades are cooler than anything I've seen in that time period. Underneath what looks to be a contemporary hooded sweatshirt as well, he's wearing a Montreal Maroons jersey, a hockey team that played from 1924 to 1938. So either he's just very hip for the time, or he planned to disguise ahead of time to blend in with the locals. My theory? This guy knows all the best vintage stores are getting cleared out, and he's time traveling, going back to score vintage shirts from the appropriate time period. That Maroons jersey would definitely be a flex in 2022. Number 4. iPhone 1920. Now, if you're pretty active in that aforementioned time travelers caught on footage community, I'm sure you've seen this one as well, but I'm sure we've got some new viewers too, so let's take a look at it. An excerpt from the 1928 film The Circus, starring Charlie Chaplin, an old silent movie about a penniless clown joining the circus. Probably the biggest laugh riot of the late 20s. It would already be a notable piece of American film history, but among those who hunt the truth, it might contain proof of a time traveler. A woman can be seen walking through in the background, wearing unnotable attire for the time period, but holding something up to her ear, which she appears to be talking into? What? As she walks by, it looks eerily like she's talking into a mobile phone of some sort. One has to wonder if she's getting good reception. I doubt Verizon had as many satellites in the 20s. Still, it's hard to deny that it definitely looks like she's talking into a cell phone. Now, some skeptics have offered some possibilities for what it could be, as skeptics are wont to do, with the most popular theory being that it's just a hearing aid of some kind, and the poor woman is just trying to hear better. Another slightly more cute suggestion is that the woman is just a bit camera shy, and is trying to cover her face as she walks by. Or, also a possibility, she could just be an old woman talking to herself and she's having a moment. I've got to say, if she is a time traveler though, she is doing a very sloppy job letting herself get recorded and analyzed like this. Or maybe that's exactly what she wanted. We may never know, but since she's such a popular time traveler, you'd think it's even got charging ports in the side. And it doesn't look like there's a USB slot though, so we have to assume it is history's first MacBook. Typical. Now, skeptics argue that it could be a depiction of a very hollow chest or a thin chest, but if this little girl is supposed to be offering the noblewoman a gift, I would say what good gift is going to come in a package that small? At best, it's a gift card, which is absolutely terrible, says you weren't thinking about it at all. It seems a lot more likely to me that someone traveled back to ancient Greece and maybe left their laptop somewhere, or offered it to the people as a gift of technological prowess from the future. Imagine traveling to an ancient civilization and showing them a MacBook. You would be heralded as their god. And if you showed them Fortnite, oh, they would be writing myths about you for eons. What if over the years, all the things that have been described as being godly, mythical powers were really just time-traveling pranksters going back to mess with the time stream a little bit? I'm very, very confident that if humanity ever does attain the ability to travel through time, teenagers will mostly use it to pull pranks and create irreversible damage to the timeline. In fact, I am almost certain that has already happened, given how odd the last couple years have been for us. Number 1. Keanu Reeves. Keanu Reeves may very well be the greatest actor of all time. A big statement, I know, but it is a hill I will protect with my life. Name a bad Keanu Reeves performance. You can't. From Neo to John Wick to Johnny Silverhand, all the way to Theodore Logan III, Keanu Reeves always delivers. And it makes sense, because he's been acting for a very long time. Maybe a very, very, very long time. There are an alarming amount of paintings and photos throughout history of people who appear to be the stunning image of Keanu Reeves. Now, the most likely answer, of course, is that Keanu Reeves has been traveling through time several times to research and prepare for whatever role he needs. Here he is as King Charlemagne, who was buried hurriedly in cold weather, perhaps as a way to cover up that the actor had to leave the role and there was nothing to bury. Here he is as Paul Mounet, a French actor who appeared in multiple silent films, who would later go on to be a professor. When Mounet passed, his body was never found, probably because he had to travel back to our timeline to be on The Tonight Show. Worth noting is that when directly confronted about his possible immortality or latent time traveling ability by Jimmy Fallon, Keanu did not outright deny it, instead only offering the quote, "We're all stardust, baby," which is absolutely something a man who has seen the depths of the cosmos would say. In a 2014 interview, when questioned about giving away the sum of his Matrix earnings to the stunt crew, he responded, "Money is the last thing I think about. I could live on what I have already made for the next few centuries." And maybe he already has.
Jumping into number 5, we have Project MONTAUK. It is a fact that until 1981 there was a US Air Force base in Montauk, New York, at the eastern tip of Long Island. But this site has been famously steeped with some pretty bold claims. It was the site of a series of top secret government time travel experiments. Allegedly. In the 1980s, writer Preston Nichols claimed that he recovered repressed memories of working on one of these projects. Now this is where it all turned a little bit Stranger Things. Get the egos at the ready. I'm ready. He claimed that the project focused on child experiments, with one child even gaining psychic abilities. Another claim, well, they created a time portal to 1943. Not just any moment in 1943 though. This time portal opened up into the USS Eldridge, the subject of another notorious government project, the Philadelphia experiment. Essentially, the experiment focused on turning naval ships invisible, but it ended up with some timey-wimey stuff and drove the whole crew insane. Good. Great.
Coming in at number 4, we have JOPHAR VORIN. Sounds like a side character from Tatooine, right? Well, you wouldn't be too far off. In 1850, a man named JOPHAR VORIN was found in Frankfurt on Oder, Germany, washed up seemingly from nowhere. JOPHAR spoke very broken German, which already made his outlandish claims even more difficult to understand. This guy claimed he was from Laxaria and spoke the ancient languages of Laxarian and Abrahamian. What are they? Well, nothing to you and I, but to JOPHAR, Laxarian was a written language of the clerical order of Laxaria, which he claimed was a Christian religion known as Ispatian, practiced in the mysterious land of Laxaria, situated hundreds of miles away from Europe. JOPHAR said he was searching for his long-lost brother, but was shipwrecked along the way. Unlucky for him. This guy didn't recognize any maps at the time and claimed that the world that he knew it had 5 sections: Sakria, Alsfar, Aslar, Auslar, and Joplar. Sound crazy? Well, probably, but the German authorities didn't think so. He was taken to Berlin to be questioned and studied, and well, no one has heard from him since.
Wow, wow, wow. I liked that. That's very X-Files. Is that X-Files that I just did?
Yeah.
Okay, good.
Was it?
I think so.
No?
Well, I liked it anyway. Good on him. Coming in now at number 3, we have the Palace of Versailles. Back in 1901, 2 professors from St Hugh's College in Oxford, England, travelled to the world famous Palace of Versailles. Now to me, this kind of sounds like part of the plot of Outlander Season 2. Where's Jamie? If you didn't know, the Palace of Versailles was the royal home of the French monarchy until their untimely demise in 1792. Let them eat cake and all of that. Well, Marie Antoinette, one of the last royals to live there, was abruptly executed in 1793. So it was incredibly bizarre then when in 1901, our 2 professors, Anne Mobley and Eleanor Jourdain, were having a stroll through the grounds of the palace, enjoying the sights, the sounds, and just so happened to stumble upon Marie Antoinette in the very flesh, just chilling outside her private retreat. There she was in all of her regal glory, head still on, sitting on a stool and sketching a painting. She shortly disappeared after a group of tourists approached the area, but the 2 professors were so astonished that they wrote a book on the matter. Now it gained notoriety by how grounded it seemed, considering the 2 professors were highly educated and well-respected women. Maybe they slipped through a time stream. Who knows? There may also be another explanation. On Most Amazing Top 10, I did the Parisian urban legends, and in it, the Palace of Versailles came up. Guess who's said to haunt it? Yup, that's right, Mrs. Let Them Eat Cake herself. What do you think, Jack? Time traveller or ghost?
Time traveller?
Yeah?
Yeah.
I think that's cool, like Marie Antoinette could just pop up in any time.
She'd have been headless house.
Yeah, that's true. Very true.
If we apply, ghost logic. Swinging right in at number 2, we have the man from TAURED. This story is pretty damn crazy, so bear with me as I collect myself. In 1954, a man was trying to get through customs at Haneda Airport in Tokyo when he stumbled upon a bit of a trouble with customs. It wasn't the usual incident. He hadn't accidentally packed a steak knife into his carry-on or failed to declare the bag of potatoes in his suitcase. It was because he claimed to be from a country that, well, it just didn't exist. Strangely enough though, he even had a passport with stamps in it to prove that he actually did. This passport was from a country called TAURED, and it completely perplexed the Japanese custom agents. He claimed that it was between Spain and France, and when officials pulled out a map and pointed to Andorra, the man became very angry. Yes, he said that location was correct, but he was from TAURED, a country which had existed for at least 1,000 years. He'd never even heard of Andorra. The man was given a hotel room for the evening, probably while customs figured out what the hell was going on, but even though there were armed guards stationed outside his room, the man just up and vanished the very next morning. His passport, which was stored in a secure security office, was also gone. The mystery remains completely unsolved to this very day.
Jack saved the #1 spot for me. What could it be? We have the mystery of John Titor. In November of the far gone year of 2000, the time travel section of the internet became a hive of activity after a series of posts from a man named John Titor. Although they'd been posted to the usual conspiracy theorist hotspots, his claim managed to pick up traction because of his intriguing content. John Titor claimed to be a soldier based in Tampa, Florida from the year 2036. By his own account, the government had sent him back in time to 1975 to retrieve a particular IBM computer which they needed in order to debug some pesky computer programs. Yada yada yada. Sounds asinine enough, right? Well, John Titor claimed that he'd hopped off his time machine in the year 2000 for personal reasons, and since he was already there, he might as well warn everyone how crappy the future was gonna get. Thanks, John. John claimed that civil unrest would begin in the US in 2004, and by 2008 there would be a full-blown civil war. 2015 would see the US splitting into 5 different regions, and World War III would have come and gone by now. Well, as we know, none of these things have happened, so complete madman, or was his timing just off? People are still so convinced by John Titor's account and its incredible level of believability. He spoke in thorough detail about the mechanics and science of his time traveling machine, and it almost seemed impossible that he isn't, maybe somewhere is telling the truth. All of his posts have been deleted, and most records of him have been expunged from the internet. Fishy.
Number 5. With the James Webb Telescope, NASA has found a way to be able to peer back into time, literally, and look deeper into the cosmos than ever before. The speed of light is 300,000 kilometers a second, meaning that it takes about 8 minutes for light from the sun to hit Earth, meaning the rays of the sun are not real time, but rather already 8 minutes old when you see it. So using that same thinking, most stars are light years and light years away. And for those at home, a light year is 9.46 trillion kilometers. So really, hop, skip, and a jump away. The James Webb Telescope is able to see so deeply into space that it's able to see light emitted from stars 13.5 billion years ago, after the dawn of the Big Bang. So in a sense, we can travel through time and are able to see light from the advent of the universe. It's not quite the TARDIS hurtling through the galaxy, but it is an unimaginable achievement, and one that will be surpassed sooner than we think. If you're liking what we're doing here at Top 5 Scary, why not toss a little subscribe our way? And I promise the rest of the ones on this list will be time travel. I just wanted to slip one little educational thing in there for you. Number 4. The Chronovisor. One of the most secretive places in the world is undoubtedly the Vatican's archives. It's been said that it's one of the most secure buildings on the planet, so if you're planning an Ocean's 11 kind of deal, think again. We can only speculate what sort of things they have locked away in there, but it has been said that they have technologies we could not believe in there. Like, the Chronovisor. According to French priest and paranormal investigator François Brun, the Chronovisor was a device that allowed members of the Vatican to see into the past. Brune claims that the chronovisor was first built in the 50s by a scientist and priest, Father Pellegrino Maria Ernetti, along with a council of scientists working in secret around the clock. Brune's description of the seemingly magic device was that it was a large cabinet made of unknown metals connected with a series of levers and buttons. Apparently, it could be programmed to see any date in the past. From Brune's accounts, Ernetti used it to see all sorts of wondrous things, from a speech given by Napoleon Bonaparte, watching the crucifixion, and recovering fragments of a lost ancient tragedy play called Thyestes, just transcribed to the modern day. Now, obviously, there's going to be some skepticism as to whether or not the chronovisor exists or ever existed at all. I mean, it's a pretty bold claim. A photo that Ernetti claimed was a real-life photo of the crucifixion later turned out to be nothing more than just an edited wood carving. Unfortunately, we may never know the truth behind the chronovisor since the doors to the Vatican's vault are locked very, very, very tightly. Number 3. Gateway experience. The CIA was fascinated with harnessing psychic ability. This is very well documented, with several projects being released to the public about this sort of thing. To simplify it as much as I possibly can, the project was centered around using a combination of hypnosis and finely tuned audio to create an altered state of consciousness. The thinking was that through binaural beats, the output of the left and right hemispheres of the brain would sync up and make you more psychic good, I guess. The summation from one of the researchers is that a human brain operating normally is kind of like a lamp. But when both hemispheres are in sync, this light turns into a laser, reaching farther and more effective than before. The goal was to expand the human consciousness and have it reach outside the body, being able to astrally project yourself back in time. Test subjects would meditate in a mantra saying, "I am just a physical body, and I deeply desire to expand my consciousness," while listening to this hypnotic audio, putting their body into a sleep state. The subjects were told to visualize time as a wheel with spokes that point to events in their past, and just find a way to transport their consciousness back to those moments. In the early tests, less than 5% of the subjects were able to achieve this, but the team believed that with years of practice they'd be able to harness this ability better. The final stage of the learning and experience was an out-of-body movement, where the subject would be able to lift their consciousness out of the body entirely and harmoniously interact with the environment. However, unfortunately, no one in the project was able to reach this stage just yet. Number 2. In 2019, Reddit user Flard posted a story captioned, "Time travel is not what you think it's like." In the post, the user named Clark details the experience he had in college at Georgia State University when he was approached by someone scouting for a clinical trial dubbed Project BTAOW33. A little disappointing that it doesn't have a super cool name like Project Majestic or Project ZK47 or something, but okay. Going along, the researchers promised to pay for Clark's tuition in exchange for participating in a clinical trial. Clark met with the researchers and was taken to a small nondescript house in the Georgian mountain woods, wherein laid a silver metal house with a ring surrounding it, which the crew insisted the test subjects avoid coming into any contact with. Clark continues and says that there were only 2 other people participating in the trial with him, 2 other students of a similar age, a young man and a young woman. The 3 of them were ushered into the home and introduced to the experiment. The doctors told them they would be launching 3 hours into the future, and the entire house would be transported, and in 3 hours they would reapparate. The doctors reassured them that it would be completely safe, as they'd practiced on rats and dogs, although they didn't know what it would feel like. After a brief explanation, the doctors drove off to their control site to begin the experiment. And here's where it gets weird. Clark claims that outside became dark instantly. And not just dark, like black, like the abyss, like an unmoving void. In the post, he describes it as like being between dreams. He claims from here that the 3 test subjects began to panic, shaking around the room, desperately trying to see something outside or escape this house that they've been locked in. Clark claims that he has no idea how long he was stuck inside that building, saying it could have been anywhere from minutes to hours to even days. One of the subjects attempted to escape, and he said he was lost to the void entirely. So what happened? Well, Clark claims that after an extended period of stasis in this void, they did appear 3 hours later in time, just like they had claimed. And that after being returned home, he'd never heard from the researchers or the project again. Number 1. The Philadelphia experiment was a US military experiment performed sometime around October 1943. The USS Eldridge was the center of these top secret Black Ops level tests. Officially, the project was to prototype advanced cloaking technology, with the intention being able to render an entire warship invisible. Think like what the Predator does, but for a battleship. Well, that would already be unnerving enough. Legend has it that the story runs deeper than that, and that the cloaking, ironically, was a cover for the true reason behind the trial, which was experimenting with time travel. Witnesses of the experiment claim that they saw the USS Eldridge disappear into a cloud of green smoke surrounding the ship, where it then vanished, before reappearing after a few seconds. Reports from the crew are horrifying to say the least, where they claim that they were affected in various disturbing ways. Crew complaining of intense headaches, nausea, some claiming they suffered mental issues after the trial. Others developed mysterious illness. Scariest of all, though, is the claims that some crew members had fused to the ship itself, skin and limbs fused to the bulkhead. One crew member in particular, Al Bielek, claims to have first-hand experience with the Eldritch, where he insists the experiment was a success, and when the Eldritch vanished, it reappeared in the year 2137. Bielek made a litany of claims about his visions of the future, claiming he saw a utopian vision of the future where the world was run on an AI that had eliminated all of the world's problems and conflicts. Officially, the US government has outright denied everything regarding the Philadelphia experiment and has ignored all of Bielek's claims altogether. But of course they would, okay? They're not gonna throw their hands up, lay their cards on the table, and be like, oh yeah, we've got time travel, we've been traveling time since the 40s, we've been experimenting with it ever since, you caught us. No, they're gonna keep it under wraps until they're ready, and they'll probably reveal it about 40 years ago.